Welcome to episode 287 of the Help Me With HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT. Joining me is Donna Grindle from Carden. Good morning, Donna.
Morning, David.
How are you?
Doing pretty well considering, it's been a long week.
Yeah.
I never thought that I would see such, a humorous, uh, when somebody said, this week, maybe Wednesday,
Mhm.
uh, that they said literally 2021 literally just said to 2020, hold my beer. I'm like,
Yeah.
but we talked about that. Everybody like, oh yeah, it's a new year.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's, I was that way with the whole, I don't understand why people think this is going to change anything, but,
Mhm.
it gives people something to look forward to. So I just don't.
Uh, it's a whole new world out there. We'll just see where the wheels fall off next.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, they will fall off, and we'll be here to tell you about it, which is
Yeah.
part of what we're going to do today.
Yeah.
Is we're going to make our annual predictions for the year. So 2021
Yay.
predictions. We'll also cover the 2020 results of what we predicted last year, and as always, we're
Yes.
amazingly accurate. So that will be our show for today. So stay tuned.
Amazingly accurate.
It's amazingly accurate. It is.
Yeah.
So, and we'll prove that as we always do.
Mm-hmm.
But before we
Yes.
get into that, HIPAA Boot Camp, we've got people signing up. If
Yeah.
you haven't already, you need to check it out. TheHIPAABootcamp.com, the virtual edition
Yes.
for this year, February 23, 24, 25.
Yep.
And we
Yeah. The early bird prices are going away soon because we do those, for those who are really signing up early,
yeah.
they get price goes up January 23rd. So
Oh, better
you got
hurry.
a week later. I think it's January 23rd. Somewhere right in there.
Mhm.
You better do it in January. How about that?
Yeah.
So we got folks signing up, and we do definitely want to keep it small.
Mm-hmm.
Even virtual, it's so much better to keep it small where we can have these kinds of you know discussions.
Mm-hmm. So get in there
Yeah.
so we don't have to turn you away.
Well, and everybody needs to be thinking about how you're going to integrate with the new stuff. And guess what? We've been covering it from the get go in the boot camp.
Yeah.
So if you are an alumni of the boot camp and want a refresher on that, give us a call. We'll hook you up, or an email because nobody calls anybody.
True.
If you call me, I'm not answering. It's just my job.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that we may have a stronger focus on some of the hiccup stuff,
Yeah,
based on what just happened.
yeah.
We'll talk about
So
that more in a minute as well.
yeah.
But yeah.
So the boot camp it's going to be awesome, and if the beauty of it is that with it being small, we got somebody asking us sent a question in asking us about. We've had people ask if it's recognized by folks. Well, it's not. I mean, it's recognized by Client Certification Board for a boatload of CEUs. We get that pre-approved, and that way you can send that certificate into any uh, different CEU, CPE, whatever it is that you follow.
Mm-hmm.
So we get that done, and we're also looking at scheduling one for August. Don't have
Okay.
the dates yet,
Yeah.
so
Do it on my
sign it up.
birthday. Birthday.
I know we party for David's birthday
Uh,
is the plan. That's what
yeah,
we're gonna do.
absolutely. So you got to have your CEU, so you might as well get them this way.
Yeah, you can knock them out because it's a bunch.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah, but we are doing a little different so that you do have the opportunity for homework. Uh, to it's the pre-course It's the prerequisites of the course so that you can make sure you're prepared. That'll be helpful to reduce the pain of the first day.
Mm-hmm.
Yay!
Sure enough. All
Alrighty
right.
then.
Very
So
good.
where do we go to learn more and sign up, David?
TheHIPAAbootcamp.com.
There you go.
TheHIPAAbootcamp.com.
That's right. Because we are the HIPAA boot camp you want to come to.
That is correct. All right. Shout out to our donors as always. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to contribute to the show, you can head on over to our website. There's a place there you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Or you can contribute by reviewing us with 5 stars, which we'll get into in just a minute.
We will, that's for sure. All right. As Donna makes faces at the camera. All right, it's time for our special segment of the week, which is our HIPAA. Say what? Never gets old. So some great stuff has happened. You know, in the midst of all the chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we keep trucking along. That's the good news, is that we have continued to just stay under the radar as best as possible and make progress, David.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we talked about this earlier, kind of touched on it, but now the security incentives have officially become law.
Yeah. Last week we called them safe harbor, but they're not really safe harbor. They're going to be called something.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to call them security incentives, because to me, that's really what they are. But you know, they'll give it a name.
Yeah.
You know, it'll eventually go from HR 7898 to being part of what it'll be 164.300 something. No, it might be it'll either go in the security rule or it'll go in administrative. My guess is it'll be part of the security rule somewhere.
Yeah. So if it's hiccup security incentives, maybe they'll just call it hiccupsy. Hiccupsy daisy. We'll figure something crazy out, I'm sure.
Yeah, so we get to do work to deeper embed hiccup into everything that we were doing, a path we were well down already.
Mm-hmm.
But there is cybersecurity framework we've been preaching for a long time.
Oh, I know. Well, there is a new acronym that you created for this, and we'll start using it. And because we can. And it's RSP. No, not RSVP, but RSP.
RSP.
Which stands for Recognized Security Practices.
That's what we're going to say. That's what we're going to start calling that.
Yeah.
Is that an RSP? Well, yes, it is. Hiccup is an RSP under high tech.
Right.
There you go.
So be looking for that acronym to start smacking you in the face the whole year.
Yeah. Well, even if no one else catches on, we will.
Yeah.
But the good news is, you know, we already have this in place, and we're just going to continue to expand what we're doing with it, and you know, look forward to being able to jump right in and not have to build something new. It's great for once. We feel like, okay, well, that's already built in. We're good to go. And we're really excited to share with our clients how, you know, you thought we were being a PETA, but we weren't. Yeah, because you got to do 12 months. So start now. However you start, find a way to start.
Yep. Get it started. So
Get
something else that slipped in before the end of the year craziness. The lucky number 13, when we talk about the corrective actions and right of access standard, you know, they've been hitting them all year long. Well, mostly in Q4. They come out swinging. So it was
crazy there for a while.
Yeah. So they did slide a last one in to give us number 13.
Yes. 13th right of access case, which is what, the 19th total case for 2020?
Yeah, I think they're trying to make a statement.
Huh?
I think they're trying to make a statement.
You think?
I know.
Really? You think? So this one, believe it or not, is a case, that might relate to Georgia.
Yeah, always a good bet.
Yeah. So it's Elite Primary Care. It's one of those DBAs, Peter Robel, MD, DBA Elite Primary Care, a corrective action plan, and $36,000 to settle the violation. So there you go. It's
Mhm.
like I was speaking to an attorney who was discussing this about potentially another new client for us. Not this one, but another one in a similar position.
Mm, that's
So
not good.
the government says $36,000. So I'm going to say whatever you need from us is going to cost about half that.
Yeah, big
Either
cost
way, it's a
savings.
deal.
Big cost savings.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, not just that, but this. Let's just say, well, I paid you half. Okay,
Mhm.
it's I'm not getting just this addressed. I'm getting everything addressed.
Through that.
So
It's a real
massive value.
bonus.
Yeah, some
Yeah,
massive
it's a real
value.
bonus. But that's an interesting way. In healthcare, you have to set your prices based on what they're telling you you're worth,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And this is one case where that might work out for us.
I think, yeah, I like it.
Right. So in April 2019, the OCR first got a complaint that they weren't providing a patient right access to his medical records.
Mhm.
And in May, they said, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. Now go off and do it. And OCR said, we can count on you doing the right thing, right? Then in October, they get another complaint saying, yeah, no, hadn't happened. And OCR looks into it and said that there was a potential violation and that they were going to do a little bit further. As a result, the patient finally got a copy of the medical records in May 2020, but it's because when they finally looked into it in October after the next complaint, they had sent it to the other provider, the new uh, physician, new primary care, if you will, but never sent it to the patient who had asked for it themselves.
Hmm.
So, I'm really, there's a part of me that wants somebody to tell me I can't have my records.
You just calling everybody, give me my records, give me my records.
I know, just to see. I'm just
Yeah.
yeah. So so this is this will be Roger's last announcement because we'll be getting a new OCR director at
Oh,
some
sad.
point. We don't know who we're going to get next. Who knows?
I know.
But the Roger's quote always the one that we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go, David. That's your requote of the quote.
All right. Put on my Roger hat. So Roger's like, look at him. OCR created the Right of Access Initiative to address the many instances where patients have not been given timely access to their medical records. Healthcare providers, large and small, must ensure that individuals get timely access to their health records and for a reasonable cost-based fee. Which
There you
I
go,
wonder
folks.
why he brought up the fee thing, like just as a reminder, or was it part of this
No,
fiasco?
they didn't mention the fees, but it's because the fees have also continually been a problem.
Yeah.
So this is what the initiative was for, is what
Mm-hmm.
he's saying, David.
Mm-hmm.
They started the initiative to make sure that this was done properly.
Yep. And
Yeah.
it's still an issue.
And well, and interestingly enough, it seems to be a lot more prevalent with smaller providers.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it has to do with they think they're doing the right thing and they just aren't well informed. They think these are the rules because It's like we do in the boot camp where we do a video that explains why you have written policies and procedures instead of telling them.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know when it started, you know how it started, you know what you're supposed to do. And most of these smaller practices, it's done by word of mouth. The
Yeah.
person today was trained based on what the person last that trained them who worked here, and then that trained them who worked here. Who knows what the original news was? It's the joke I always love about the ham.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can assure you that this fine or agreement, settlement, whatever you want to call it, of $36,000 is far more than anybody will pay to get into the HIPAA boot camp, which would have probably had caused this to not happen.
Indeed.
So if you want an investment that may save you a booty, you might want to look at the HIPAA boot camp. Just all I'm saying.
It's from April 2019
Mm-hmm.
to what we had a couple of boot camps in there.
Yeah.
2 or 3.
Exactly.
Yep.
So
yeah, there you go. Word.
Yeah, it is definitely an investment. So
Indeed.
You'd be crazy not to attend. That's all I'm saying. All right. So that brings us to something else is crazy. We have a review.
Yeah.
So this is
Row.
Row 112 from the United States. And he or she writes, great podcast with little humor, with a little humor thrown in because, well, if you're like me, this is one tedious content that makes my anxiety levels rise. The humor and relaxed talk / discussions make it more manageable for me to follow along. If you are responsible for compliance, HIPAA and or privacy, this is for you. I 100% agree. So now, Row, this is
Row. That's the serious voice.
This is where I disagree with you. Like 4 stars? Seriously? You couldn't give us 1 more star? It's like when somebody says, I love you, I just don't like you. But thanks for your review and your 4 stars.
Yes, we appreciate that. So we need about 10 people to give us 5 stars
to make up for the 4 stars.
So thank you, Row. But boy, that was David's stern voice.
Yeah.
Row.
Well, maybe this person's like, people don't read all the 5-star reviews. You're always wanting to go, like when I go buy something from Amazon, I want to read the people that didn't like it. Like, what did they not like about it? So maybe that's the thought process here.
Maybe.
So I don't know.
Well, if it is, thank you, Row. And if it isn't, thank you, Row.
Either way, thanks for taking the time to do it.
Yes, we appreciate it.
Yep. All right, let's get into what happened last year. For those of you who don't remember 2020.
All right.
The beginning of the 2020, we had an episode, as we do each year, and we talk about what we think is going to happen in that year. So we're going to talk about our predictions for 2021. Before we do, let's see how we did with 2020. And as always, we did pretty well.
Yeah, surprisingly, because we really don't go back and look. We replayed this episode, but neither one of us went and looked at it or anything until we got ready to do it.
Yeah.
Because, we're serious about our production. But if we had a production team, I'm sure we would be serious. So,
sorry, Boyan.
He is not dealing with the production part that we are talking about.
I know.
We love our bow.
'Tis true.
We do. Indeed. Okay, so that covers us, folks. You need to understand. He's a scary dude. All right, so let's talk about this, David. We said a lot of big settlements are going to make the news, and OCR enforcement will tear it up between now and the election. OCR will not be the only one to watch because the states will get rolling on this as well.
All right. How do we fare with that one?
Well, I think we mentioned that there was a record number of settlements by OCR.
Yep.
They did tear it up, and there were some big ones. The Athens Ortho one was one I knew had to be coming soon, and it was brought up in what the summertime, July or somewhere. It came out, and there have been some substantial work done on these settlements, but they have definitely focused on the right of access and tried to make it clear we're going to do this until people pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Now the states, most of the states have been a little busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, maybe so much, but I mean, definitely the states are paying attention, but they are really overwhelmed right now. I don't see the resources there, but we definitely, I think we could get a pass on this one that we did do well.
Yeah. The fact of what happened in 2020 with the COVID, I'm surprised any of these things actually happened.
Well, some of them only got worse. So,
yeah, it's like, I don't know about you, but like all my business plans for 2020, when I went back and looked at them, like, what did we accomplish that we planned for? Is like nothing.
Now, I did a presentation that showed the business plan for 2020 and said that was funny, and the next one had it going into shredder.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that brings us to the second one that we have that we talked about, which is new authentication methods will be tested, but no one solution will become the go-to solution just yet.
Well, we know that happened because everybody changed where they were working, how they accessed everything. Everybody's still trying to figure it out. But we definitely had a good bit of things tried, so to speak.
Oh yeah, and there's still this whole passwordless security that they're working on. I think this is not really a prediction, but I do think that you'll hear more about that this year, probably into next year, because there's they got to figure that piece out.
Yeah. Well, we see there's things changes, even, the guys that we talk about, just because they're, they handle a small office, they're reasonably priced, and I have it on my desk and I'm using it all the time at Gatekeeper. I'm using it. So Untethered Labs folks called us up and said, hey, you want to see what we're doing next? And there is a lot that has changed and that they are all adapting to as well. They've got some really cool features they're putting in place. That as we come back, everybody's going to be more mobile because they're used to being mobile now.
Yeah.
So there is a lot going on out there. And yes, there has been a lot tested. I can tell you that for sure. So not the reasons that we thought it was going to happen, but I will give us a big solid check on that one, David.
Sweet. All right. That brings us to number 3, where we said that IoT, Internet of Things, for those of you who don't know, or IOMT, Internet of Mobile Things, all kind of stuff.
Things.
Other things.
Medical thing.
Oh,
no. Internet of medical things.
Internet of medical
and OT
things
is the operational stuff, and I don't know, like your heating and air and all those things that are all connected to the internet,
which is getting more crazy.
Yeah. So the operational, facilities operation stuff is now being run connected, and yes.
Okay. So we predicted that they would be a source of a healthcare data breach in 2020, not just a data breach, but a healthcare data breach.
Yes.
And how did we fare?
We don't know. It may very well have happened, but we don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we did see a report about one that it said that everybody being working from home now is like giving the hackers or like a kid in a candy store with all the IoT at people's homes. You got 11 devices, and you got people working at home, and you got the kids doing their classwork at home, and all that's going on. So we don't know just how bad that's going to be. because those things are probably happening and we don't know it yet. But one we did read about was a CFO whose MacBook got taken over by hackers, and uh, they couldn't turn on the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to get the microphone turned because they wanted to eavesdrop on what the CFO's saying so that they could get the financial, info.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't do that. But guess what? They found a speaker system. They did not name it,
Yeah.
but we can guess it.
It's a smart speaker.
It was connected via Bluetooth or something. Anyway, they found it on the network and were able to get into that device and turn its microphone on and listen to the private conversations of the CFO.
Mm.
So there you go. It's we know it's doable.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's probably already happened and happening.
Yeah.
So we can't say that we get a full check on that, but we get a pass. I'm not going to be too frustrated with us for that.
Yeah. It's especially how long it takes often for data breaches to show up.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Well, in normal world.
In the normal, yeah.
Well, what we used to know was normal.
Yeah.
As you mentioned earlier, this is the new normal.
Number 4, ransomware gets much, much worse. It's the most solid one of the 2020 predictions we had.
It is.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a stretch, for us to make that prediction. And we had no idea how bad it was going to be. And like our conversation with Eric about how concerning it is that they hit so many healthcare entities right around the end of the year with those ransomware attacks. It's not going to get better.
No.
And as we mentioned before, 2021 will get worse along those lines.
Yeah. And just a reminder, this is the first time that it's been documented that somebody passed away because they couldn't get immediate medical treatment from a facility that got hit with ransomware, which happened in the UK.
Yeah. And I got an article I haven't had time to include in anything that talks about some civil suits that are going on with the hospital in Alabama that got hit with ransomware, and people talking about how it impacted their care.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's something we got to go back and spend some time on. But
yeah, so let's connect the dots here: cybersecurity, patient care. See that? I know you're not watching on video potentially, but
yeah, patient safety.
Yeah, so
it matters.
It does, and you need to be investing. Which, from things I'm looking at, it's showing that a lot of these bigger companies are certainly investing a lot more in cybersecurity for 2021. But if you're small, you need to be upping your investment in cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm. And it is a true investment in your business.
Absolutely, it is.
All right.
First step of that is to show up at the boot camp so you know what to invest in. All right, number 5, supply chain and third parties will be the source of a breach. Boy. Dude.
That was our best one.
That was a grand slam, right? I mean, right as the end of the year comes around, guess what happens? The big solar winds hack.
I mean, there were others, but I mean, the solar wind is massive. We're watching the story. Most people, I mean, it's like deep in the guts kind of cybersecurity attack that a lot of people are like, whatever, they were in there and it was bad. But, it's like this week, everybody worrying about the computers and what could have been going on with those computers in the riot at the Capitol.
Yeah, the insurrection.
Yes. And so, but it's like David said, I couldn't turn away. I was worried about all the computers.
I know. This like everybody else is watching the craziness happen, and I'm sitting there going, "Why is this computer not sitting at the login screen? Why is your stuff up on the screen?" And
and the VoIP phones, and I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, and I followed a little bit of a Twitter feed this morning where people were talking about, because a question was posed. Which was something to the effect of, are you now in 2021, are you now going to have as part of your instant response plan, what should happen to your technology should an immediate evacuation need to happen?
Yeah. And it kind of needs to be there.
Yeah. An immediate evacuation, not somebody pulled the fire alarm and everybody's moseying on out the building. I'm talking about active shooter or bomb in the building or whatever. Like, you don't have time to grab anything.
Yeah.
Which was
when you think life is it being threatened.
right. And it's it's funny because a lot of people are, they're like, just hold down the Windows key and hit L. It takes, half a second. And I'm like, okay, but somebody screams across my office and says, get out now. Something's happening. I'm not thinking, let me lock my computer. It only takes half a second. I mean, there has to be some type of automation in place that makes sure that happens. There needs to be some kind of remote access that can happen so that if everybody has to leave out, that IT can send something to the network that says lock all these machines.
Or yank the plug.
Something. But, it needs to be something you're thinking about. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And if you're not thinking about it, that's a problem.
Well, it's like one of our clients did a fire drill like in the middle of the day just to see, you got to do that sometimes. And they were in a building that was doing it, so the building did it. And they called us, they said, well, a lot of things worked, but our front desk person just picked up her purse and ran out the door and left everybody sitting there, all the patients in the waiting room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because some people are tasked with, like they're the safety coordinator. You need to make sure all the rooms are empty, which is kind of funny because like if something crazy is going down, that person may be like, forget that. I'm not hanging out to make sure the rooms are empty. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Peace out, brother.
Where training comes into play.
But
so we don't know though. We don't know how bad this one is. And the third parties and the trouble that they can cause, and this being so deep down, you may be part of this hack and not even know it.
Yeah.
And it could be 4 or 5. This is that business associate tale.
Yeah. And part of that scares me is always the IT side of things, because if there's anything that worries me more than anything, it worries me more than my clients getting hacked is me getting hacked.
Yeah.
My business, because we're tied in so deeply with so many clients. And I worry about that. And my employees worry about that. I actually found out recently, I did a survey. One of the questions on my employee survey was, what do you think could put us out of business in 2021? Which I thought was an interesting question.
Yeah. Yeah. And
every single person had one of two answers, and sometimes both answers. It was either we lose clients because, they're shut down for so long they can't recover from all this COVID shutdowns and stuff. And the other one, which was the bigger answer that most people had, is we end up getting hacked.
Yep.
And cause our clients to be a target. And so great. My employees worry about the same thing that I do, which is fantastic.
And that is something that everyone should be able to ask their staff and get that answer. But it's like, there was I was trying to get something upgraded on the website at one point, and they were like, well, this might break your website. And I'm like, that's an informational website. I would rather it break and not work than be hacked and have somebody putting crap out there, because I'm done. Right. It's just that attitude that you need to have. So definitely this is a perfect segue, because that ain't going away. That whole thing, we're moving that one right forward. In fact, a lot of these just move forward.
Yeah. And in our predictions, I did try to not repeat some of the ones, because I think some of them, and I could probably use the same prediction a couple of years in a row.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. So we tried to keep away from this and
be a little bit more specific.
Yeah. And I will say, Donna and I, we did not collaborate on these. So,
No.
which we always don't do. We always, sequester ourselves away from each other, come up with our own lists, so we're not influencing the others' answers.
Yeah.
So here we go. So we'll start out with yours. Oh, by the
Okay.
way,
Yes.
I do need to mention that there was one 2020 prediction that we didn't add to the list because you thought it was so crazy that I had that prediction that you told me don't put it on the list. So it never made it into the audio. It never made it on the podcast. But I predicted there would be a pandemic in 2020. And you told me I was crazy.
Okay.
It's
I'm
funny.
done.
But
Bye.
in all seriousness, it always reminds me of how people on the other side of an incident will talk about how, oh, I told everybody this was going to happen. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you didn't.
No.
Don't try to act like you knew what was going on.
I know. I
All
know.
right. So
And
2021.
when you are able to do it, people, they're like, no, you didn't say that. Well, yeah, I actually have documentation.
Yeah.
But
Oh, what's worse is when you did say it, but you didn't. There's no way you can find it. Like, I know I did it. I said it. I talked about it, but I can't find anywhere where I documented it. That drives me crazy.
Yeah, I try to have witnesses if it's something I, think would really matter. But at any rate, here we go. Number 1.
All right. Not in
And
any
we try to
particular
be more
order.
specific, so we got 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not in priority order. They're just what we thought of in order.
Yeah. Now you get to experience our brain dump in action.
Yeah, we try to clean it up a little bit.
All right. Number 1 from Donna.
The security incentives. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you reading them or me?
You go ahead. They're yours. I don't want to take that away from you.
Coordinated we are. Security incentives for frameworks like NIST and 405D, hiccup, will drive a new approach to cybersecurity programs.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that.
You, David?
And I know that'll happen because we're going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing it.
Yep.
But it's not a new approach for us, but it will be a new approach for other people.
Right.
And we're going to be teaching other people how to do that, which is something we're going to talk about really soon. Watch for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as Donna mentioned earlier, these things we've been talking about for a while, it's a big section in the boot camp. So we go through the NIST and 405D. We also talk about SIS 20. So I don't know if we'll keep SIS 20 in the loop or if we're going to focus a little more heavily on 405D. We haven't talked about that yet. Mm-hmm. But the point of it is there are definitely frameworks out there and you can use SIS 20. It's just not specifically mentioned.
Yeah.
But 405D is a fantastic one to start with.
I agree.
I thought you would.
Okay, so number 2, SolarWinds, the details will trickle out and become a driving force for changes in supply chain requirements, especially those involved in the IT infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll have to happen quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, we're already seeing, I don't think people really understand until they get these. I remember people yelling at me for wasting people's time doing our vetting questionnaires. About 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm like, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well get used to it. Well, here you go. And HICSCRIM, which we've talked about before, is the guide for vetting vendors, which guess what was recently updated. We hadn't even had time to talk about that either.
Mm-hmm.
But it is part of the C3 program. It's a long drawn out thing, but it starts with HIC. So it's involved in our area. HICSCRIM is going to be something that we're going to be pulling in already. And this SolarWinds thing is just those kind of tools are going to be everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I have mixed feelings about it because I know that it's extremely necessary, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, how is this going to affect my ability to deliver services?
I'm working with folks on trying to figure out something that you could build that you could just provide to people and say, okay, here is this questionnaire and it's a standard. So I'm working on that. Don't worry, David, I got you.
I knew you did.
All All right, number 3 is one we both agree on. Now we're getting into the ones where we were both saying them. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? But cyber attacks will continue to become more complex.
Oh yeah.
No doubt about it.
Mm-mm.
And by that, well, I guess when I say that and we both agree, what do you think when I say they're going to continue to become more complex?
Well, the biggest part I think is when you start having the tools from FireEye and then of course the NSA from years past, all those things start leaking out. People that would not have had that level of skills to do
Mm-hmm.
stuff are now able to do it because you just kind of bolt on something that somebody else created that's a fantastic tool.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you've created this much more complex attack than what you had before. And
Yep.
so that's usually what I see coming from it. It's not that hackers aren't super intelligent. There's a lot of them that are, but there's a ton of them that are just purchasing something somebody else put together. They don't really know how to do a lot of what they're doing. They're just buying it pre-made.
Yeah, and I don't think people get that enough. So the complexity is there. And then to me, it's also figuring out how they got in.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting harder and harder when
Oh
you
yeah.
look at how far down the path solar winds could have brought somebody in to
Mm-hmm.
a network.
Yeah.
And,
And
just finding how they got in when they're coming through the vendors is going to be harder and harder.
yeah, and this also speaks to how some entities will incorporate new technology and not understand that it has to be configured properly. Um,
Exactly.
we we um, we were brought in a few months ago on a cyber attack that happened, and it was a phishing attack that somebody fell for in an organization, and they're using a cloud email provider. And so we are okay, cool, let's go in and look at the log files. Well, guess what? The log files were never turned on. So nothing ever got captured. There was nothing. I contacted 2 forensics companies and they both told me the same thing. Well, that's not on. There's nothing we can do for you. There's nothing to look at.
I
So
know everybody right now is pausing the podcast and running to their email phones.
yeah, and it's not. And I talked to the organization about it, and they're like, well, we just purchased the software. It says it's secure. It says it's HIPAA compliant. It says this. It says that. I'm like, no, it can be used in those manners. You
Yes.
still have to set this stuff up properly and make sure that it
Mhm.
stays set up properly. Security is
Yeah.
not set it and forget it. In some
No.
cases, these people are just buying it and it's like, think about it and then don't think about it.
Right.
It's not even setting. You're just forgetting.
Yeah. It's like you can't just buy it and you're done. It's not something you stroke a check about.
Yeah,
Right.
things are capable of having better security. It's there, but by default, most things don't come locked down and secure. You need
I
to make
know.
the decisions and determinations on what you're going to turn on, what you're not going to turn on, how it's going to turn on. Just there's a lot of decisions that need to be made, and
Yeah.
it drives me crazy because really at the end of the day, when I say, well, why didn't you have this set up properly? It's, well, we didn't want to spend a $300 to have somebody look at it. I'm like, seriously, $300? You didn't want to spend that?
Yeah. Now you're down 300,000.
Yeah. Now you're dealing with this massive breach because
Yeah.
really you didn't want to spend a couple $100. That just it's
That's
ridiculous.
and it's that what is that saying about penny rich and a dollar poor or something like that,
Mhm. Yeah. Or, people that are stepping over a $5 bill to save a penny.
Yep.
It's
So,
crazy, but that also somewhat goes into one of my predictions when we get to it. But
well, and
yeah.
it also goes right into the next one, which is the telehealth and remote work. Those are now permanent.
Oh yeah.
They're going to be part of the work and care infrastructure. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing, people have just slid those things in a hurry. And even if you think it's secure, I bet you're not reviewing it constantly to make sure it stays secure. Number one. Number two, if you think it's secure, then you know it's not. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like constantly watch whatever tools you're using or the setup, because if you're not checking it, if you just think it and you haven't checked it,
hmm
it's not.
Well, something that non-technical people may not know is that just because you set something up a certain way doesn't mean it'll stay that way.
Indeed.
There are always updates and patches and things. Anything could turn something off or change it.
Mhm.
It moves the security setting from one thing to another. And next thing you know, that's not working anymore. I've had times where I've logged into something, it's set to be on, but it's not working. I have to turn it off and then back on to get it to
And
start
then
working.
exactly. I can't tell you the number of times that happened.
Yeah. So if I just look at the settings, oh yeah, it's on. But
It's
no,
good.
you got to go further than that. You got to make sure it's working.
Yeah, you check the logs and you see that things are happening, and there's a lot of ways these things go, which is a perfect segue into number 5.
So this is my first one here, which I said companies are going to start to look at cybersecurity as necessary and not a luxury.
And you're
And
right. You're right. You're absolutely right, because they have treated it like a luxury, or even worse, they think they are buying the luxury.
mhm.
They
Yeah.
think they're buying you know, depending on how your feelings are, the Cadillac or the Lincoln or the Mercedes or whatever you see, and what they're really buying is a really solid Honda.
Yeah, at best.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is going to be where organizations, especially small ones that don't have the resources of having a person to pay attention to this stuff, they're really going to have to find ways to learn something about cybersecurity. They don't need to know all the ins and outs, but they need to understand that antivirus alone is no longer good enough.
But
It's
don't go without it.
right. You can't stop there. You've got to understand some pieces of it so that when unfortunately, you still have a lot of IT companies out there
Mhm.
that think selling antivirus is the only thing you need.
Right.
Can't do that. Um, on top of that, when you start looking at some of the frameworks, a lot of them will say you need to have antivirus. And so people go, okay, I got that. I'm good. Well, that's the floor. And you need to consider what is it that you're protecting and how well do you want to make sure that's protected.
And that's
And
another thing these frameworks will bring to the table.
oh yeah. Well, sometimes the framework will say you need to make sure you're protecting your data X, Y, and Z. It doesn't say anything about what methodology you're using to protect that, but what they're telling you is that there are multiple layers of security that needs to be in place. So don't get hung up on I've got antivirus and the framework said all I needed was antivirus. No, the framework didn't say all you need is antivirus. Framework said you need that plus how are you going to protect all these other levels?
Yep.
Which means there are multiple levels. There's a tier level to all your security. And it's not just technical security. It's security of the person. It's security within your processes. So all those things have to be looked at.
Indeed.
All right, get off my soapbox. Number 6. I think virtual meeting platforms are going to start focusing on being more of a work from home solution and not just a remote meeting solution.
Yeah.
Um,
And people are sick and tired of it, so you've got to make it more interesting, and that's why we're doing a lot of things trying to make things more
yeah.
interesting.
And this prediction has really zero to do with cybersecurity or compliance at all. It's
Well, it
just
does
something.
if you're not securing them.
This is true. But it does play into what we just mentioned about all these platforms are going to be changing and updating and all this stuff. So if you've got Zoom, for example, and it's, if you've configured it properly to meet all your needs, and then all of a sudden the platform starts making all these updates and shifting what it's doing, you need to continue looking at that stuff, making sure it's still turned on and still working and all that.
Mhm.
But I do think that we're going to see a big shift because Zoom and all these were not created for work from home solutions. They were created to just have meetings, just
Right.
virtual video meetings, and we're
Yeah.
getting way beyond just using it for meetings. Number
Yeah, I mean,
7.
we'll sit and work on something while you're just kind of hanging out working with somebody on something. It's a whole different ballgame. So,
Oh yeah, it's definitely more of a
oh,
collaboration
yeah, we
tool.
got to pick up the pace, brother. Number 7.
Number 7, we're going to start seeing cyber fallout from 2020's sudden shift to work from home workforce, including the IoT impacts. Whew.
As we previously mentioned, we don't know yet what
Yeah.
we don't know. We don't know what we don't know has happened.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we're taking everybody and saying, go to the place that has the worst security on the planet and work there. Yes, your homes.
Yeah.
I cringed at the thought of how bad things are going to be.
Well, and there's a lot of discussions that now companies are going to need to invest in ways to secure their employees at home.
Yeah.
Because it's like, don't use your home computer that the kids also played Minecraft on or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot going on those machines. So let me control it and lock it down better by providing them, especially, for those who aren't going to maintain offices.
Yeah.
So they need to invest in that. So
Which is
definitely the way to get to people.
and you're going to see people push back against that, because every single time I've had that conversation with companies and they're like, we need to secure our people at home. The people at home are going, I don't want to give you access to my machine. This is my computer.
Well, that's why you're going to have to give them one. The company is going to need to provide a machine that is only used for company work.
Mm-hmm. And you may even have to provide some level of network protection on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Well, and that machine boots up, and the only thing it does is immediately connect to a VPN. But you can
Yep.
control a lot more things that way, and that's the only way that you're going to get any kind of real controls from a security standpoint.
Yep. And the next two kind of play into that same thought process, which is number 8, the rise in targeting home networks as an entryway into companies.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it goes there again, weakest link thing. It's gonna happen. And number 9, Donna just mentioned VPNs. I'm going to say VPNs and RDP attacks will be on the rise,
Mm-hmm.
because tons of VPNs are being used, RDPs being used, again, not implemented properly.
Well, and there's VPNs that have had a patch out there for a year that are still being used because they weren't patched and still haven't been.
Yep. And some people are using VPN hardware. So their router is talking to another router over a VPN. And then when you start looking, you're like, this router's never had a firmware update. It's not good. And, you think it's bad that people at home are not updating and patching their computers. Think about all the other devices, the IoT devices and the routers and all that. Those things never get patched.
Or even where they found that a ton, like thousands, I want to say, a bigger number than I even want to think about, of the actual VPN solutions that were available in the app stores were people just go, oh, VPN, thank you.
Yeah.
And they're not. And they're not.
Free VPN.
Free VPN. And so, but here's the thing is, that software is actually written in China, and while you think you're being secure, it's sending all of the, so there's all these folks that are, okay, they're getting the message that they need to have a VPN, and then they don't get the message that the VPN can't be just pick one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all VPNs are not created equal.
Thank you. That's a great
Vet
way
your vendor. And that brings us to the last one, number 10, drum roll, is guess what? More cybersecurity regulations.
Well, there's no other way.
Yeah.
There's no other way, because either people don't understand what to do and they need the direction of a regulation, or they don't know they're supposed to do it and they need the structure of a regulation, or they flat out refuse to do it and need the enforcement of a regulation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's only 4 options. Those are the first 3. The last one is people like us struggling, but we're fighting a good fight.
Yeah, and I think the SolarWinds hack has put a lot of pressure on the government.
Yeah.
And will
But
continue.
you think?
Will continue to do that. So I think that their answer, of course, to everything is regulation.
Well, I mean, like I said, what else they gonna do?
Yeah, it's not our fault, so we need to regulate it.
Yeah.
So I see it
can't
happen.
find any of the. I haven't found enough of the details on the solar wind thing, but there's, you hear a ton of rumors in the cybersecurity world, just like anything else when something big like that happens. But if it turns out that they had been warned about security issues multiple times, and it turns out that it was SolarWinds 123 password,
Mm-hmm.
which are things that have been discussed, but we're not, until it's confirmed, it's not going to go well. I mean, if that's what's happening with a company that is being entrusted by, clearly a lot of major companies entrusting them. And if that's what's happening, what other options do we have to protect us legally?
You don't. You have no options.
There's only regulations, the only other thing. So everybody's backed us into this corner where there's no other options.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Well, you couple that with the pressure of the fact that, as a leading nation of lots of other things, we are not leading in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So,
I get excited if there's a cybersecurity tool that somebody's talking about and it's from Israel.
Oh yeah. Oh, they take stuff seriously.
Yeah.
GDPR came out, what is it, 2 years ago now?
And they're enforcing it.
Yeah. And so you look at the United States, you're like, come on, guys, let's get caught up here.
Yeah. Well, this is what happens when you don't.
Yep. So there we go. There are 10 predictions of 2021. So I'm interested though, Mr. and Mrs. Listener, what's your prediction? What do you think is going to happen? So shoot us an email or call Donna, tell her. No, email us at contact@helpmewithhipaa.com. Let us know what your prediction is. We may share it on a future episode. I want to know what everybody else is thinking. What do you see?
Yeah.
What do you read in the tea leaves?
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us what you think of whether or not David really did predict the pandemic.
You can't prove I didn't.
You claim there was a witness though.
Well, not of that. Yeah.
All right, y'all.
No pandemic claim. But anyway.
It was fun to say.
Yeah, but I have always been prepared for the zombie apocalypse. All right, folks, remember.
That's good. That's where we'll stop.
Yeah. Remember to follow us, share us on my favorite social media. Leave us a review, 5 stars preferably. Row. Somebody's going to walk up to me one day and go, I was that person. But as always,
call. This is Row.
But help us spread the word, get the podcast out there to more people, because obviously people need to know what's going on. They need to know what they need to know, and you can help with that. So do your part. Share us out. All right. Remember, for Donna and myself, HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.